All right, so I watched episode 3 of season 2 of Andor. I wanted to break it down a little deeper because I felt that it had some problems with transitions. If you've been following this channel, especially during the Rings of Power era, you know I am very interested in narrative structure and narrative flow, and specifically how scenes flow into one another. And I notice when we have some strange cuts where, like, a scene ends and a new scene begins, and the transition to them is a little jarring or strange. And I felt there was quite a lot of that in this show in particular. I was worried this would happen because now that they have the kind of Game of Thrones style, lots of plots going on, very far from each other type of storytelling, it means that they're going to have parallel stories that don't really make sense placed next to each other, and they're just going to have to run with it and cut with them. I want to preface it this by that I like this show. I enjoy this show. Like, visually, it's one of the most beautiful things I've seen. Like, the art direction, the shots. There's like this one shot of Mon Mothra in the party, and then like everything's blurry around her and she's looking at the camera. Beautiful art direction. I like the setting, and I like the story it's trying to tell. I find very interesting. It's just there's a few things that are holding it back, and I want to talk about those things because it matters. If this show sucked, it wouldn't matter. The fact the show is so good in many different areas is why I feel it more strongly, where it's like this just you're so close. I want to be clear that I like it. My griping on these issues comes from a place of affection and appreciation and respect, because I respect them enough to know that they can do better when they screw up structure like this. So I wanted to break down some of these cuts. So episode 3 starts with Andor trying to get back to the farming planet where his friends are at. And there's him still trying to figure out the controls of that ship. And then it flows into the farming planet. And that makes sense, right? Because the farming planet is where he's going to. Now we're going to go to where he's trying to get to. Makes perfect sense. They're having like a dinner. They have yet another one of those scenes of like, oh, is the Empire going to go this way? Do we need to run? Which has been going on for 2 episodes. This time, though, they have a plan. They have like a fake work order to rush to such and such place to kind of get away from the Empire. And that's like the plan. So they're going to have to leave tonight or something. And then we cut to the wedding, which again has been going on forever. It's just like nothing's happening. But now the wedding is happening. Finally, Mon Mothra has a talk with her daughter.
My mother was drunk when I got married.
An interesting scene, because she's basically telling her daughter that her daughter doesn't have to go through with it, even though it would be a social disgrace to do it, to stop at the altar, basically. But she's telling her that, which it's clear that Mon Mothra wished her mom had told her that. She explicitly says this, that this is what she wishes her mom had said. What a fantastic, emotionally devastating scene. It's such a great moment of courage and a crystallization of where Mon Mothra is emotionally. And then to have such a profound expression of motherly love be thrown back in her face, and to a certain point, rightfully so. It's so powerful. It's so meaningful and said much, much too late. Mon Mothra's projecting her feelings about her own marriage onto her daughter, and her daughter wants to do it and is more interested in the old ways. It puts her daughter off, and it almost like creates an even bigger barrier.
I wish you were drunk.
I mean, like, harsh, but good writing. Then they go out and do the wedding. I love the costuming here. I'll never stop complimenting the costuming. It's gorgeous. Wow. I mean, the head, like, gold chain thing that Mon Mothra puts up for her, like, veil thing. I don't know, it just looks great. I love it. And then the ritual itself was really interesting. I really like the world building here and the implications of the like ritual words with the knife, with the cutting of the hair and setting up the cutting of the hair, because I've been paying attention to the fact that she like only had one hair loopy instead of two, and I guessed what it meant, and it was fun that I could figure that out through context clues even before it happened. It was such a fun thing, and the implications of the knife and the way it's presented paints an interesting and almost dark picture of Chandrilla's past. It's interesting. It's not going to be relevant to the plot, but I like world building. It's fun. So that was cool. And then we go into Cyril and his now girlfriend, the Imperial officer whose name is escaping me, but I'll remember at some point. They have a dinner with his mom, and I was so excited the moment I realized they were having a dinner, because they held off on saying that it was going to be his mom, but I knew it was going to be his mom. There's only the way they were like taking care to do everything perfect and all this, and her being nervous. Great characterization moment, because she's so reserved and serious, and her actually showing any sign of vulnerability was very satisfying and really very human. And the entire dinner, as it goes throughout the episode, I enjoyed a lot. Now, I enjoyed it because I enjoy Cyril as a character, because he was bizarrely well characterized. It feels like it might slip into the same thing as last season, where it's not very relevant. Like, his relationship with his mom, though the most human thing in this show, is not, doesn't really matter to the rest of the plot. I wish it did. I wished those scenes mattered, because I really liked those scenes. The scenes with his mom and the scenes with him, and the girl standing up for him, and the way that played back and forth. It's also one of the few things where the state of affairs actually changed. At the beginning of the scene, they were in a certain place, and then she has her like secret talk with the mom, and then the mom and her have like a understanding, and she treats him differently afterwards. There's like an actual thing that changed, which is basic scene writing. You're supposed to have something change at the end of the scene to make it matter, like to have some reason for the scene to exist. And a lot of these scenes haven't been doing that, where they just kind of talk, and then they just kind of, those people disperse and are brewing and angsty about what will happen, but nothing's happened. That scene actually, something changed. It was a character thing. It wasn't relevant to the plot, but something changed, and that's why I liked it. The problem, though, is tonally, it's very different than the scenes that they're cutting from and to. So this wedding, that's like kind of important and integral to all those characters, and then you cut to, Cyril having this dinner with his mom, which is kind of serious and awkward. After that, it cuts to Cassian talking to the antique dealer's assistant, and her telling him, like, hey, the planet that your friends are on, it's gone dark. I don't know what's going on there, and him deciding to rush to go see that, right? And then after that, it cuts back to Cyril's dinner, which the natural progression you'd think is to cut to the farm, because that's what that conversation was about. But I don't think they do that. They cut they cut from him like rushing to go to the farm to Cyril dinner, which is completely irrelevant. Again, this is a jarring cut. This has no bearing on anything. Like, I enjoy those scenes, but in the narrative structure of the whole episode, they're pointless. Very pointless. And that just keeps going. And that scene, we learn, I think, that the Imperial Secret Service lady is like an orphan and was raised by the Empire, which explains a lot about her and gives some depth, some interesting clarity on what's going on with her. And then it cuts to the now married couple walking through a crowd with people clapping for 10 seconds. And then we go to the farm. So Biggs is packing. Nothing really happens in that scene. except them kind of being concerned. And then it goes back to Cyril's dinner with his mom, and she kind of threatens his mom. I love that. That's been a long time coming. It, again, has nothing to do with the rest of the plot. Then we go to the after party of the wedding, where the antique dealer guy unveils some like precious religious artifact of Chandrila. We get another example of what this show likes to focus on and what it matters to Andor, which is the world building and little details about the setting. Like, they talk about these religious artifacts and all of this and how there's only 8 of them in this. Are they going to matter for this story? I doubt it, but it likes to focus on that. I like that because I like world building. I'm a Tolkien girl. I'm a Dune girl. I like that stuff, but it just shows where the writer's headspace is at, where that gets its own moment. The father of the groom does this little speech, and then the antique dealer talks to this random guy who is from Gorman, that planet that's about to get like annihilated by the Empire through aggressive mining, but he doesn't know that. I don't know if that guy's important, but they had that scene. There's just conversations with the banker. We're not quite sure what's going on there. He needs to talk to her, and he's not sure about, I think he wants to back out of helping her, or maybe not. And Lucian is like lingering around worried about that. And you don't really know what's going on there. It's very opaque. I hope that's on purpose, and there's a reason for that to be unclear, and then it's going to be unveiled later. But right now, it's just kind of, it feels like you're missing something. Like, it feels like there's a piece of information we're supposed to know that we don't know when they're talking. I don't know. Maybe, I hope that's intentional. It's just weird to have that many scenes about something that the audience doesn't really understand. One scene is fine, because that increases intrigue and whatnot. But, like, this is, like, the 4th or 5th scene that's about this. I don't know. And it doesn't feel like it's moving very fast. And then the bride, groom have a dance, and everyone's watching, and it's, like, just kind of fancy. And then we cut to the farm, where Andor's friend is telling the robot that they're going to leave him with this nice lady, and he's very upset about that and acts all cute and sad. And that's that scene. They realize that the kid who has been flirting with this local girl has gone to say goodbye to her when he really should be there, and now they're freaking out because they're trying to leave but can't leave because he's not home yet. And then he's hugging her, but then the Empire shows up at her parents' like depot, and his speeder's there, and in the front of it, like an idiot, so he can't go grab it. So now he has to run through the fields of wheat back home. And that's happening, and then Andor's friend is trying to find the kid, and they're just doing that. And then we cut back to Lucien and Mon Mothma, and Lucien's like concerned about the banker. Again, another scene where we're not clear what the specifics are, but it's clear that the banker's a problem now. They bring in a DJ for the dance, like a robot DJ, and now they're playing like very modern sounding music, and everyone's dancing. It had huge Harry Potter the Goblet of Fire, that like party scene. It was giving off those vibes. Not necessarily in a good way, not in a bad way, it took me out of the story kind of way. The music was a little too contemporary to feel like it belonged on this alien planet. But fine. Then it cuts to Andor trying to contact Biggs, and then the creepy guy from the previous episode shows up and tries to assault Biggs. And oh my god. Okay, this is hard for me to judge. I went into Andor with the understanding that it was very grim and that it was very serious. And I just, I came in with an open mind to accept that, and that it wouldn't have a very Star Wars tone and it would be very serious. And I like kind of treating it like its own thing from a thematic standpoint, from a tonal standpoint. However, that that was a little explicit. It felt way too explicit for one, Star Wars, but in particular Disney. That scene, which was brutal and whatnot, and they had a fight, and then at the end, she literally explicitly says that
He tried to rape me.
she said it. It feels very strange. It took me out because all I could think of that is very not Disney. That doesn't work. It felt so contrary to the brand that this is a part of that it did, even with the way I have decided to approach this, which is to not think of it as Star Wars and particularly not like Disney. But even that, I was like, what? The word rape should not be in any Disney property unless you're hard rebooting. What are you doing? It felt very strange strange choice. And also a pointless choice. What does this narratively gain? Why are we having the scene except to be shocking? I mean, not shocking is the wrong word because we saw this coming, but they introduced the slimiest, most unrealistic of the characters. He the way he's like a mustache twirling villain. He even looks in the mirror and fixes his hair like freaking Gaston. He's like this straw man they created just for this scene. It's just what? If this entire show had that tone, this would make sense. But this show hasn't really done a lot of straw manning, which I love about it. Everyone, feels realistic, and even the bad guys feel like real people. This guy doesn't. He's just there so that this could happen to Biggs, and for her to have this tense scene, I don't know, personal taste, it didn't feel right for this story. It didn't feel like it added anything and just made it more limiting, where it just aged up the audience even more. Who is this show for? And the show, it's adult Star Wars fans is the answer, and I know that. It's so unnecessary. It feels like it wanted that Game of Thrones edge, and that is not a compliment. And it wasn't really a good fight scene. It was just them stumbling around a room with her hitting him with increasingly larger objects. Well, really, her hand and then a hammer. It was cut, and it was cut strange. But my real problem with it is that they decided to have Mon Mothma's dance scene, which I'm sure people have shown images on the internet because it is wild. Mon Mothma drinks a lot, and because I think she's kind of figured out that Lucen is going to kill her banker friend, and she's drinking and she's kind of dancing and letting loose, and cutting in between that, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, is this rape scene. Okay, it's shot so strangely because first she's fighting him, and then the guard that's outside hears them, and for a split second I thought they were going to play it off as his screams the guy thinks are of pleasure and then doesn't come. But if that was going to happen, that joke would have landed, because I that's what I thought it was, because the way it was shot was he was unsure what was happening. The guy screamed a couple times before the guard started to investigate. And then, so she knocks him unconscious or kills him, I don't even know. And the guard, wants to shoot her. And that's the tension. And then there's Andor's friend, who's now captured by stormtroopers. And then there's the kid that's running through grass. And then Andor himself is coming with the ship. And there's is he going to make it in time? All that sort of stuff. That's the tension of that scene. And interspersed with it, kind of randomly, is the dancing at the wedding and people going crazy and Mon Mothma letting loose, and it's just cut between that. Even in the middle of this rape scene, we're cutting to this dance. And I'm are you kidding me? Like, do you think those two things are tonally appropriate to be placed together? Even metaphorically. Like, her letting loose and dancing in the thing so obviously should have been at the end, where all of these bad things happen, and all of this stress gets piled onto I almost said reader. I'm such an author. The audience. The audience gets all this stress, all this tension, and mirrors Mon Mothra in this way, and then Mon Mothra lets loose at the end. It feels like a release with the audience, and then the episode ends. This stretched out because it kept cutting back. She's like dancing for freaking ever, over and over and over again for like how long is this? 10 minutes? Like cutting it back over and over, more like 6 minutes. It's so much, and it just cut the flow. You're like, you can't get immersed in the tension of the scene when you keep cutting to this freaking lady dancing in a party. Daredevil did the same thing with its fight scenes. Is this some modern trend to take two scenes that narratively don't go together and just splice them together and hope for the best? No, don't do that. If you're gonna have the rape scene, let us stay in it. That's not gonna lighten the mood. That's not how emotions work. Just cutting to her dancing is not going to improve the levity of that situation. It's not. So don't do that. I swear to God. What is wrong with people and transitions? Anyway, Andor comes and picks them up on the ship, and his friend dies in the process, and they go up, and that's that. And that's the end of episode 3 for him. And then we just have her dancing still. I mean, freaking Mon Mothra keeps dancing. There's this one shot of her husband, like, looking, like, surprised to see his wife letting loose. And I was hoping they would continue that, because that would have made that interesting. Like, his reaction to that. But no, it just keeps just nothing about those scenes change. It's just her dancing forever, and then cut away, cut back to her dancing, cut away, cut back. Anyway, her sister's like wandering around and sees the banker get on like a transport that is being driven by her girlfriend, and she realizes that her girlfriend is probably going to kill the banker, or at least I realize that, and there's like that moment. So it's kind of unspoken that that's going to happen, I guess. I don't know. And then it ends. Yeah, at the end, you see this great rundown of all the bad things, right? Everyone is sad, everyone is tense. This is the moment where you give Mon Mothra her little dance, and then the thing ends. Do not stretch it. I'm going to beat a dead horse with this, but this is what happens when you have a bunch of scenes from different plot lines stitched together in a near random order, is that you have to make it work. They stretch these scenes longer than they need to be because you're cutting away and back away and back away. It screws up the pacing. Why can't we be focused? The problem is, I really like this show. I like lots of things about it, which is why I'm giving it a hard time, because I feel like it's so close to being awesome. It's so close that I have to call it out. I don't know. I'm looking forward to episode 4, or 5 and 6. I think they're doing it in 3 chunks or something like that. If you want to be informed of when I drop my review of that, please subscribe. And feel free to check out my book, Bone Song, Diary of a Sentient Sword. The first 10 chapters are free in the link below. Enjoy reading, and I'll see you in the next one.